Call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everybody here. Thank you all. This is the last meeting before Christmas, and appreciate all of you taking time to be here. And for those in the audience, we will have some public hearings. First of all, we will go through an opening process and a few other items. So first of all, it is good to be back. Thank you, Councillor Fair, for taking care of this council meeting 2 weeks previous. I was gone, and appreciate you doing that. The trip to Ukraine that I went on was really an important event. Not only because there were things to do and to represent the city in a certain way, but it was an important event for me personally as I went to go see some very near and dear spots for my family in certain areas of Ukraine. You know, being there, looking at what was left, there are remnants of. So first of all, many of us are Mennonite or have a Mennonite heritage, and so we have a connection to Ukraine. And so there are remnants left from what our ancestors left there, whether they're grandparents, whether they're great-grandparents. And it was interesting to see those remnants. And first of all, there are actually remnants, the Mennonite remnants. There's actually some Mennonites that live out there. I met a Boris Letkuman, for example. He spoke very good Ukrainian, some Russian, and he spoke Low German. So our common language is Low German. And if any of you have tried speaking to me in Low German, that's not that easy. But we tried, and we did it, and eventually we had an interpreter to work things through. There was a Mr. Wientz that I met. Mr. Wientz didn't know that he was a Mennonite until he was about 35 or 40. But they're rediscovering some of the heritage that they have. So there's certainly are people there, but not many of the remnants of the heritage that was left. There certainly are places. I visited Zaporozhye, which is a city of 750,000 people, with a budget of only about 4 or 5 times that of ours. They're trying to do much with little, and it was really good to meet with the council there. But that area is actually the old Goertzen colony, and so there are remnants all throughout of our heritage there. I went to Molonchansk, which is a small village of about 2,500 people, and that's actually was Hauptstadt at one time. Sounds familiar. I went to Waldheim, a place called Vladovka, which is Waldheim, and that's where my grandparents grew up and lived, and my great-grandfather was a minister in the church. There are also buildings. There's lots of buildings that are actually remnants of our heritage there, and that remain. In Zaporozhye, there was a school. It was a girls' school at one point, still standing, and I have a picture of it that you probably maybe saw on the internet. That is still being used for a school. There was a hospital in Waldheim that services the region. And on the plaque, it said Workentines had been involved in that. So I'm wondering if our city manager has any heritage that is connected in. There are certainly churches that are still functioning today, that have been restored and are there, that were built. There are countless homes, and there was one specific home that was there that was where my grandmother grew up, and it's still there. These are important places throughout. You can see very clearly which ones were built by Mennonites and which ones weren't. There were factories. There was a brewery, believe it or not, built by Mennonites that was used as a brewery till just about 15 years ago. And there were factories. A factory that was the largest in the Russian Empire at the time, still stands now. And it was used, actually they made Pepsi in it till a few years ago, and I'm not sure what they're making in it now. But certainly those buildings are all still there. And of course there are numerous gates to people's homes that were built well over 100 years ago. Thinking about all these buildings is that they were built for not just the generation that was there, they were built for future generations. And it may not have been the generations that our forefathers and foremothers actually thought were going to be there, but nonetheless, they're being used. That school still has kids in it. That factory still has workers in it. The hospital is serving 4,000 people, and it was built over 100 years ago. There are many, many homes that are being used still as homes that are the one warm place that people have. And so they certainly thought ahead. They built strong, firm, solid buildings, and they were there for future generations. And they still are there, many of them, just maybe not the generation they thought. So that was really an amazing trip, not only personally, but just to see, as a community, our roots, and now where we are today. I do have to also say, though, thank goodness we're living in Canada. It's not an easy system they have. It's not an easy political system they have. On a lighter note, over there, the mayor gets to report to council and citizens one time a year. And the mayor also gets to be the city manager at the same time. Can you imagine how that would work? It wouldn't work very well, actually, I can tell you. Not for me, anyway. But there's just many aspects of it that we just sit back and say thank you that we're here. Thank you for the heritage that we have there. And we'll continue to try and make this world a better place in the place we live now. So, with that, we have the agenda in front of us. There's some slight changes. There is, Mr. Warkentine, you want to add 8A in regards to January 3rd meeting, is that correct?
Yes, I have a brief report I'd like to present to council.
Right. Are there any other changes to the agenda? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Fair. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have the minutes from December 6th on page 1. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Funk, second by Councillor Penner. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. There's no business arising from the minutes. We will now move to the public hearings, and we will close the council meeting, open the public hearing, Variation V-2016, number 20, 295 Loewen Blvd. This is on page 5 of council's book. Mr. Warkentine, I'll ask you to introduce this, please.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, and for members of council, this is an application for variance file V-2016-20 for property with civic address of 295 Loewen Blvd. The owner of the property is 680-8400 Manitoba Ltd, with the applicant being DeWalt Custom Homes. Purpose of the variance is to allow a multifamily residential development that exists on the site to have a total of 26 parking stalls for a 22-unit building, whereas zoning bylaw 2055 requires a minimum of 36 parking stalls for such a structure. DeWalt Custom Homes was approved to construct 15 residential units as part of a two-phase multifamily residential development on the subject parcel some years ago. The applicant is requesting to construct now 22 residential units with the 26 parking stalls, whereas the 36 parking stalls are required. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been issued. There is actually one email piece of correspondence in objection to the application that was received. It was put in council's mail bins this afternoon. As far as report from administration, as was noted in the notice, the original proposal to develop this property was subject to the approval of a rezoning to an RMD, residential medium density, during the subdivision and consolidation process. The application to rezone the property required a hearing and approval by the Manitoba Municipal Board due to objections from the neighboring landowners at the time of the original development proposal. This property has also been subject during that approval process to the city's infill development policy. with the developer needing to demonstrate to the city that the development would be compatible and consistent with the existing neighborhood in terms of setback, scale, and character as required by the Steinbach official community plan. The parking stalls that are required as is present is pursuant to City of Steinbach zoning bylaw, which does provide a reasonable level of on-site parking for all residential developments. And based on the previously approved two-phase plan for development of the property, it does not appear that this is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood. The recommendation from administration is that council deny the application for variance.
Thank you. Is the applicant here or someone wishing to represent the applicant? Okay, please take the podium and state your name and your address, please.
Okay, my address?
Yeah, please.
Okay, my name is Les Slotin, 50 Du Monastery, Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Thank you.
Okay, Mayor and councillors, I'm going to read a little information I prepared here. So we have the 18-suite building at 295 Loewen. We'd been approved to build a second building of 15 suites on the property. The 18 suites are fully rented, and the property manager, which you have a copy of the letter from him, says that the tenants use 21 parking stalls. Eden Health, which you know is a program of the Mennonite Churches of Manitoba, has approached us to rent suites in our current building. They require one-bedroom suites for their clients. Our 18-suite building only has 3 one-bedroom suites. We were hoping to build the second building with 22 suites instead of 15, not using any more land or making the building any larger than originally planned. Excuse me. Eden Health informs us there's a shortage of suitable housing for their purposes in Steinbach. Of 40 applications for suites that they have, not just for our building, but the total applications they have right now that they can't find space for the people, they have only 8 of those that would require parking. That would be 1 in 5 suites require any parking. The location is a 6-minute walk to the hospital, 2-minute walk to the Steinbach Medical Clinic, and just a few minutes to most major churches. And for many people, a car is not required at this location. It's my understanding the parking requirement for a total of 2 buildings with 40 suites would be 66 stalls. We would appreciate getting your approval to proceed with 56 stalls.
Okay, thank you. There may be questions for you before you leave the podium. Are there any questions at this time? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Penner.
Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, Eden Health is just renting suites from you, or is this
That's what they
building
want to do,
Eden
yes.
Health? Okay, so how long is that lease or term? Is it indefinite, or what's the commitment there? And once they're done, does it go to just a normal apartment block?
Well, they have an ongoing need, they say. Like it would be, as long as we're willing to rent to them, but they would want to be renting suites. Like they say, there's a real shortage right now, and in the future for what they see.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Penner?
Yes, can you just clarify, you said Unit A, that you've built already,
Yes,
has 18 units,
right.
and how many of them are one bedroom?
3 one-bedroom.
3 are one bedroom?
Yeah.
So the rest are all 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom?
Correct, yes.
So how many total suites would you have in that?
In the first building, 18.
18, but I mean, how many bedrooms?
Okay, there's 3 one-bedroom, there's 12 two-bedroom, and there's 3 three-bedroom.
Thank you.
Further questions? There may be further questions, but I'll ask you to take the seat for now.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone here wishing to object or have any questions on this file? Okay, please take please take the podium. State your name and address, please.
Tom Penholt. I'm on the title of 299 Boulevard, but I live in Grand Point, Manitoba. Mayor, Council. When I say we in this letter, I'm speaking for myself, my daughter, and her husband at the time, who bought the property at 299 Boulevard. First off, we oppose the variance for a few reasons. With having 10 less parking stalls, some residents surely owning 2 cars and visitors will indeed cause many to use the parking on the street. I didn't type that right, sorry. And with the cold weather we've been having, some will drag extension cords across the sidewalk which wouldn't be safe for pedestrians and is a fire hazard as well. Loewen Boulevard has a lot of traffic backing out into the parking lane, which is on Loewen Boulevard. Full of parked cars can be a very dangerous situation as well. Now, if you'll bear with me, we have a proposal to help out this situation. You have a dilemma right now because with this variance. 4.5 years ago, my daughter and her then husband bought the house at 299 Boulevard. It was advertised with a park-like view, which it did have at that time. The real estate agent and the local lawyer used to transfer the property disclosed nothing about what was happening with the lot next door. Now, we don't know if they knew anything or not, but it was obvious that the previous owner did. And instead of attending the hearing for the rezoning, they chose to bail out. We didn't know anything until DeWalt constructed a large billboard advertising the condo units the following summer. I talked with the agent in charge at the time about buying us out, but heard nothing back. So we did make that attempt with DeWalt at that time. I spoke at the Board of Revision last year to try to at least have the property taxes lowered to make the house more appealing. Denied. Having sat on a revisions board a number of times myself, I would have taken a closer look and probably cut the tax down. The house has now been for sale for 1.5 years at the same price that it was paid for, with 0 buyer's interest. Your real estate market says the market right now in Steinbach is strong, yet still no interest due to the higher tax-based condos next door, created by the city of Steinbach. The house was bought for $209,000 4.5 years ago. A new furnace, water heater were installed, new doors, new kitchen, new bathroom, some hardwood floors in the bedrooms, and a deck, all costing around $20,000 in upgrades. Still unable to generate any interested buyers at the same price that it originally sold for.
All right, sir, thank you. We do need to address very specifically the variation that's in front of us, so if you can get to that portion, please. Yeah.
I did say at the beginning I have a proposal, and I'm almost there, if you'll bear with me.
All right.
Okay. When the first condo unit was built, it caused some structural damage, causing cracks in the ceiling, and a carpenter was hired to jack and support the affected area. We wonder now what damage the second unit will cause, building just 20 feet away when the piles are put in. Back to our proposal. DeWalt is asking to build 7 more units at a selling price of around $180,000 each. That's over $1.2 million. I know it's not all profit. But if and when the house sells, it's not all profit either. It's actually a loss as it stands. It's reported the average median price for a 2-bedroom home in Steinbach is around $244,500. If either the city of Steinbach, who put us in this situation aiming for the higher tax base, or DeWalt Homes were to buy us out at the break-even price of $230,000, DeWalt would probably have enough parking space, stalls available, and make Loewen Boulevard safer with less use of the parking lane. Thank you for considering this fair deal for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to object or have any questions on this file? Can I respond? Not yet, please. Thank you.
Right.
Go ahead. You'd like to speak? No, just object. Can you just do that through the mic, because everything's recorded, and so just say your name and your address. And
my name is Bev Tanhoff, and I'm his wife.
Okay.
And it's my daughter. So yes, I object to, what we've been through waiting for this house to sell, and it's never going to sell with a condo a couple feet away from the house, and the damage that it does when they build and put in the piles.
All right.
So
we are specifically talking about a variation. We're not talking about a rezoning now. We're talking about a variation for parking. So is there anything about parking that you'd like to speak
No.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to object or have any questions? Anyone else wishing to object or have any questions? I'll give you one more chance. Yeah, please take the podium, state your name and address. Yeah.
Curtis Nordstrom, 40 Beaver Crescent, Steinbach. My wife owns the property. One of the complaints we've had trying to sell this property over the past year and a half is that it's a busy street. A lot of people, I guess, have the dilemma of backing out onto a busy street. Potentially, if there's less parking spots in the parking lot, whatever you want to call it, people will be inclined to park on the street. Therefore, it will make it even more difficult for us to sell this property that, again, we've been trying to sell for a year and a half.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for addressing the parking. Did you wish to respond?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and, I mean, the way it's set up, no one is going to be backing onto the street from our property, and I did address that we're not using all the parking spots we have nowhere near it, and the residents that we have that do want to move in, they don't, like, it's 1 in 5 would even need a parking spot. Should I address the other issues about the wanting to sell the house or anything else? Or?
I would suggest you address specifically the parking issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've said everything I want to say about the parking. It's not going to be an issue.
Okay, thank you. All right, hearing no other objections or any questions, I will close the public hearing, open the council meeting. Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Swagstra.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll make a motion to deny the variation.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Siemens. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The fact is that we have a zoning bylaw in this case for a reason, and specifically we require 1.5 parking stalls per dwelling unit plus 10% visitor parking. It's there because we want to make sure that we have enough parking for each property, and we want to have enough parking for each property on a long-term basis. The reality is that while it may be the case that the current occupants of one of these properties uses fewer of the parking stalls, and perhaps the future tenants would use fewer, we can't get an absolute guarantee that that will always be the case. And the reality is that we have enough situations in Steinbach where there's not enough parking. And when you look at this street, this area, which is a busy street, we do not want to have a situation where there's not enough parking in the future and then more people having to go on the street. And so I think it's appropriate that we deny the variation.
Thank you. Councillor Siemens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also agree with the motion as it stands. I've long been a proponent of having more than 1.5 parking stalls on condominium apartment blocks because there is too much street parking in all of those situations. And we do not have a long-term agreement here as to who will be using these condos or the apartments, although there is an ongoing need. But I also Then Eden East will also plans to build more apartment blocks and in Steinbach and condo units as well. And so ongoing, we don't have a long-term commitment from them, not in writing. We know that there is a need. But quite often, when I go by different apartment blocks, there's too much street parking in those areas, and we need to be able to control that. So 1.5 stalls per unit is a minimum. It's not the maximum, it's a minimum.
Thank you. Further discussion? Anything in closing?
No.
No? Call for the question. All those in favor of denying? Carried. Thank you. It will not proceed. All right. Now we're going to move to 6B. This is Sincerus, Parkhill GP Limited. This is in regards to bylaw 2072. This is a secondary plan on page 15. Mr. Workentine, I'll ask you to introduce this, please.
All right, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this actually is a fairly involved file. There are 3 separate land use applications pertaining to the same parcel. With your permission, Mr. Mayor, I'll introduce all three.
Thank you. This is a public hearing for both the zoning bylaw, the secondary plan, and the creation of a road openings.
Correct. So the individual decisions would need to be made on their own. However, the public hearing could be held concurrently. The subject property is commonly known as the Parkhill development, located along Mackenzie Avenue in Steinbach. The application involves three particular items. First of all, bylaw 2072, secondary plan amendment, bylaw 2073, zoning bylaw amendment, and subdivision application file 4451-2016-7721. The owner and applicant for the property is Sincerus GP Ltd. Purpose of the secondary plan bylaw 2072 is for the secondary plan bylaw as a guide, to be amended as a guide as to how a particular area will be developed long term. Bylaw 2072 is an amendment to an existing secondary plan that includes a particular section north of Mackenzie Avenue, commonly known as Parkhill development. Purpose of rezoning bylaw 2073 is to rezone a portion of the subject parcel from RLD residential low density to EI educational institutional. And thirdly, subdivision application is to allow the creation of one new lot as well as the creation of Parkland Drive for the intent of a future school site to be created within the development. Notices as required under the Planning Act have been issued. There is no written correspondence on the file. And recommendation from administration is that subject to the prior execution of a development agreement, that council proceed to give second reading to the secondary plan bylaw 2072, and if there are no objections, to proceed to third reading. Correspondingly, recommendation for zoning amendment bylaw 2073 is also for council to give second reading, and if there are no objections, to proceed to third reading. And finally, if those two bylaws are approved, council may also proceed to approve the application for subdivision as presented.
All right, we do have the applicant here today. Does the applicant wish to speak? You can make it brief if you so choose.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We're here on behalf of creating a school site for the Hanover School Division, and we basically designed it in accordance with their needs and the requirements of the City of Steinbach. And we just thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, is there anyone here wishing to object to this file or have any questions? Anyone wishing to object or have any questions? One final one, is there anyone here wishing to object or have any questions? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing for all three and move to a motion for bylaw 2072, the secondary plan, second reading. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Penner.
Move to approve second reading.
Move to approve second reading, second by Councillor Fair. Go ahead.
Yes, as stated, this is in order to permit the creation of a future school site, and the establishment of the school site requires a formal amendment.
Thank you. Further discussion? Thank you. Council, we do have in front of us something significant, actually, and that is a school site proposal for the west side of the community. This has been something that's been talked about 25 more years, and so we're actually seeing this come to fruition, although this doesn't mean the school will certainly be built, because this will require other levels of government funding it. But nonetheless, having the land secured and identified, I think, is important, and so for us to do our part and improve the secondary plan, I think is good. Call for the question. All those in favor of second reading? Carried. Is there a motion for third reading, please? Councillor Swagstra, Councillor Fair. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor of third reading? Carried. We now have the bylaw 2073 in regards to rezoning. of the same property to educational institutional, right? Can I have a motion for second reading? Second reading, please. Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Siemens. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Third reading, please. Councillor Siemens, Councillor Swagstra. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We now have the subdivision 4451-2016-7721. You've seen it all. You've seen on page 39 as well the proposal. This is actually in regards to the road opening and the creation of Parkland Drive. Can I have a motion to approve the subdivision and road opening combined, please? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Funk. Any discussion?
No discussion.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Sounds like the negotiations are going very well out there.
Security?
All right. We have no delegation scheduled. We have reports and recommendations from the city manager. Mr. Workington, you did have that one addition.
Yes, I don't have anything written, and I'll just provide a short verbal update. Just in respect to the scheduled council meeting, scheduled regular council meeting for January 3rd, 2017. And this may have much to do with the time of the year and the way the holiday schedule is unfolding this year. But with respect to the typical material that is normally available for that expected meeting, there are currently no land use files that are scheduled for the January 3rd date, no pending bylaws that administration is able to bring forward to council, as well no reports that are scheduled for presentation, and there are no delegations scheduled. With based on that, administration is requesting council's consideration to cancel the January 3rd meeting.
Thank you. How would council like to proceed? Councillor Fair? Move to approve that. Seconded by Councillor Penner. Okay. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Guess the mayor gets to report in a month's time to start.
Still not a year.
Not a year, though. No. All right. Thank you, council. We do have the accounts payable in the back of the book. Can I have a motion to approve, please? Councillor Penner, second by Councillor Funk. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. We have financial statements ending November 30th. Can I have a motion? Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Fair. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have building permits, November 2016. Motion to approve. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Funk. Any discussion? Councillor Siemens.
Question for you to administration. What is our year-to-date total compared to years past?
Oh.
How does this?
Actually, I can maybe answer that. I don't know. Do you have that?
Well, I do have estimates for 2014 and 2015, if that's sufficient. A ballpark, I believe 2014, our estimated building permit value for the year was about 32 million. And I believe for 2015 was about 34 to 35 million. So the direction is to increase, is an overall increase in building permit in this year.
Did you prepare them to have those numbers there?
You did well.
Wow.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, 9D, we have the minor subdivisions. Oh, did we not vote on it? I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Fair. Boy, you got good after just one meeting.
Yeah.
Call for the question. All those in favor? Thank you. We have minor 9E. We have minor variations. Sorry, we have minor subdivisions 9D. September 1st to the 20th on page 71. I heard Councillor Fair move that. As Councillor Funk seconds that. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. We have 9E, the minor variations, January 1st to December, January 1st to December 20th, page 71 as well. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Swagstra, moved by Councillor Siemens. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. 9F, bylaw 2074, Barkman Avenue. This is on page 72. Mr. Workentine, I'll get you to just briefly introduce this.
Yes, this request is for council consideration for first and second reading for debt issue bylaw 2074 with respect to the Barkman Avenue reconstruction program that was completed this year. The overall project was actually substantially more than the $1 million that is being sought under the borrowing. However, the other components of the project were funded by a combination of grant funding and general operating funds. This proposed borrowing would have to be approved by the municipal board, and recommendation is for council to give this first and second reading and then present to municipal board for approval.
Council, how would you like to proceed? Councillor Penner moves.
Move first reading.
First reading, second by Councillor Swagstra. Go ahead.
Yes, although we anticipated that we would spend more, as he indicated that some of that is going to be handled through operating and through grants. So this is the balance of that. And the borrowing terms are good, 2.33 per year for the 5-year term. And so I think it's a good idea to move forward.
Thank you. Further discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Is there a second reading, please? Councillor Siemens, second by Councillor Penner. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Any questions of council? Council, I do have a question. And that is, I have seen in the media in the last few days that there have been some discussions by council members just about the project that we have approved and that we have put forward when it comes to the Performing Arts Centre. And I have a question, not necessarily about the project itself, but just I'll have a statement and then I'll have a question. But I think it's important for us as council to respect the decisions that we have made. We know that there are meanderings when it comes to information. We know that there are new things that do come up. But all in all, when we have plans to move forward, when we have voted on things, when we have approved things numerous times, and we set in motion a process where we ask volunteers to be working diligently to raise funds, when we set in motion a situation where we have administration working hard towards something, and we bring into question whether there is council support on something or not. I think it's important that we continue to be committed to follow through with the commitments that we've made as a council. We have had numerous votes and we have had numerous discussions, not all of which we've agreed on. In fact, the process that we're going down with the Performing Arts Centre isn't something that I actually voted for, but I've been working hard to try and make this happen. And so I think for us to have to go to speak to the media before we speak to us as a council is counterproductive. It's not illegal, it's not something you can't do, but it's counterproductive. And so I think we really put our administration in a tough spot. we really put fundraisers that we've asked to put money forward in a tough spot. We put volunteers who put countless hours into something like this in a very difficult spot. And you put the rest of council in a difficult spot when this goes on. And so I would ask that this council continue to follow through with our commitments that we voted on. There will be new information. There will be new things that come up. But let's respect the process. Let's respect the people who've put a lot of effort into it. Let's respect the governments that we're asking. We're putting huge efforts into asking governments for dollars and partnerships. And let's not undermine that work that we've put together, that we've put in place as a council through resolutions before we actually see it through. And so the question I have for you and is that I would like to see us move forward in a positive way, even though this project that we have in front of us is difficult and we don't always all agree on it, but we've voted on it. We voted on pieces of it numerous times. And we have to not undermine our administration, our fundraisers, our volunteers, and the rest of council. So I'd ask that you do that.
Would you entertain a motion?
Sure.
I'll make a motion that we affirm our commitment that we made in regards to the $7.5 million, providing the other conditions are all met. And further, I'd like to put a sunset clause on there that it's done on June 30th, 2017. That would be my motion.
Can I clarify your motion, please?
You may.
So what you're suggesting is that we follow through with the commitment that we have, the plan that's been put in place, that we're moving, that we move ahead, but you're also putting an additional saying, but let's put a sunset clause that if it hasn't worked, if it is not working.
June 17th dies.
June 2017, end of June 2017. Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Penner.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Fair.
I think something like this sends a bad message. Like when I know that this project has kind of taken on some dynamics that we maybe would have rather not seen. And the fact that we committed to it a certain amount of money, I think we don't want to go back on our word, say that, you know, we committed to $7.5 million. We're not changing that. We're not changing any dynamics. The dynamics that have changed is that we need more money from outside sources. If that doesn't happen, the project doesn't happen anyways. But we're making it very difficult for them to go to their sources and try to raise funds for this, because there are people that would support this, but if we go and make something like this public, I think it makes it very, very difficult for the fundraisers to commit to something that they don't know if it's going to happen. So I think that we need to just follow through on what we committed to, but I do think it's very important that we put a sunset clause there.
Okay. Councillor Penner.
Yes, thank you. One thing that stands out is that the integrity of the process of council is critical for us as a group. When we do debate and we do disagree, that once it's decided that we do move forward, and if it's sabotaged and undermined and there's misinformation and all manner of manipulation with the press, then it undermines what council has decided by majority vote in a democratic process. We are allowed to disagree, but we are also supposed to move forward. And if we cannot move forward, then there's no point to have a vote. One of the things that has really bothered me about this process has been misinformation. The numbers have not been clear, and some of that I think we should take responsibility as a city. We need to make sure that the numbers are very clear. The numbers that we've received from Stantec are in here. The numbers that we've gathered through the whole entire process of the feasibility studies, all of the other estimates that have been done, the comparisons with other large centers, those are all very solid numbers. We have numbers, we have estimates, and there's no reason why that needs to be undermined at this juncture. Yes, it is a large amount of money, It is. But the integrity of the process is to move forward until such time as there is an answer, yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Schweitzer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I respect what others have said. Obviously, I have a different take on some of this here. I want to just point a couple things out. When we had, and there's been a number of votes that we've had in terms of the process. One of the first votes we had was last July, and the motion was actually a motion that I had moved, that we put we have a maximum of 7.5 million, which would be a maximum of 50% of the project, and it was very clearly understood. The numbers we had at that time indicated that the outer limit of the cost of a Performing Arts Centre would be about $15 million. In fact, the numbers we had indicated a bit less, but that was an outer limit. And I remember I went on the record when I was asked to clarify that later on about stating that, of course, $15 million would be out at the outside, because that was simply the number that we were working with. And so the numbers that we were dealing with, that was the number at the time. We have never had a vote on a $24.3 million Performing Arts Centre. That has never come to council as a vote. The first that was released in the public domain didn't happen at a council meeting. I was fully prepared, when that number was brought up and debated in a public, open council meeting. I would have simply raised the concern at that time and made it public at that time. It was not released in that way. It was released to the media, not at a council meeting. And so, yes, some members of council answer questions and speak to media outside of council meetings, particularly when it's in reaction to information that's released outside of the council meeting. We have never, as a council, in a public meeting, voted on that size of project. The reality is that when you consider the different parameters there, yes, the commitment of 7.5 million may be the same, but the project is not. It is not. What was once a project that is possible, that there was some reasonable, okay, if we get 5 million here and 3 million there, and we add in, 6 or 7 million from us, now that's something which is possible. That was reasonable. That's what I supported. That's what I supported the whole way through. Now we get hit with this $24.3 million number, which is far above any of the previous estimates that we had, and that's simply different information. And the reality is that when we get dramatically different information, when the cost estimate is now, about 60% higher than what was originally projected at a more of an outer limit, sometimes we might make different decisions based on new information. And again, the preferred way to do this, I fully agree, it would have been far better if during an open public council meeting we'd had, here are these numbers, and let's have a debate on it right there, and I would have been more than happy to do it in that particular process. So I will obviously be voting against the motion.
Further discussion? Councillor Penn.
Thank you. I think no one is disagreeing that the cost of this Class C estimate is high, much higher than we did anticipate. That being said, there is so much merit to council going through the process of debate and going through the process, honoring the commitments of all of the efforts of the people that have been involved in this process. And that includes the public feedback and the feasibility study as well. We need to honor that. We need to honor the efforts of volunteers and people that do care about the project, and to toss it out without even allowing any public input for donations, any input from the federal level, just undermines the entire process.
Thank you. Anything in closing?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, Councillor Siemens, I didn't mean to.
All right.
I saw blank stares over here. So.
Trying to comprehend a motion that's put forward, really this motion should have been put forward as a notice of motion to the next meeting. That is a point of order that needs to be done. I understand why it's
Sorry,
here.
there's a point of order. I have to get it answered. Thank you. Mr. Workentine, the resolution is, as you understand it, does it need a notice of motion? Is it changing anything, or is it simply adding a sunset clause in?
My understanding of a notice of motion, it is required if it is seeking to reverse a previous decision of council that has been made within the past year.
So in your opinion, would this reverse that decision?
My understanding is there has been no deadline date set in any previous council resolution. This would be a new condition, so it would be adding to whatever direction council has previously approved, in my understanding.
adding, not detracting.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So just for clarification.
So that means?
That means that it can stand because it's not reversing any decision. It's simply moving us forward, just adding a sunset clause. Yeah.
Okay. The process here, I've been very disappointed in the process that has taken place as well. How the information was released, I'm disappointed with that. I agree with that. It was surprised to me that it was released in that manner. But I understand why it was done as well. I would have liked to have a discussion here at council at some point regarding that. 24.3 million isn't a number. That is the number on that was presented, but that's a starting point. And there's a lot of discussion that has to take place after that. We don't have operating numbers. We don't have deficit numbers, if there will in fact be a deficit, which we are all assuming. There's a lot of assumptions being made through this whole process. And we're all reacting, and a lot of the press was about assumptions. And we need more information, and to get that information, we need to have the process continue. That's critical, so that we have a lot of clear information. It is tough to make a decision. We see that number, we all reacted in the same way, and but there is more information to be had, and we need that information. But that information stops, and it stops the fundraising activities, and it has already, I believe. We've got ongoing federal and provincial people, parties that ongoing read the news out of Steinbach, and so then that has an effect on how they give grants. That'll have an effect on how we are perceived. That means we're a split council. That means that we're somewhat dysfunctional on this issue, and we're not working together, and we're not pulling the same way. And that'll have an effect on the long term on a lot of our funding here, I believe. But I stand by the motion as made because I do think it's critical that the city continue to go down the path that we put in place.
Thank you. Further discussion? Councillor Penner.
I guess I don't view disagreement as negatively, maybe, as some others do. I do think it's unrealistic when 7 of us are elected to represent 15,000 people, and then there's a project of this magnitude. I think it is unrealistic to expect that we would all have the same opinion on it and all be united. That would be far more dysfunctional if we were united on this project than if we have disagreement on this project, because we're all representing different people in the community. So I don't view the disagreement as being negative. I actually view it as being healthy. I think that's how better decisions end up getting made, is when there's discussion and honing of ideas, for example, and that the actual disagreement isn't negative. We should be having that. So for me, I represent the people I believe elected me, and you guys, you'll represent the people who elected you, but that's all different people. So I don't think we should view that as such a bad thing. In addition, not to rehash this, but again, if this had been brought to a council meeting, we could have all discussed it in that forum and gotten it all out there. So this is how things have fallen into place. Unfortunately, I guess. As a result, though, I will not be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Fair, and then Funk, and then Councillor Penner.
Okay, I really don't have anything new to add to make my argument, but I'm just going to stay with where I've stayed, where I started off, and I will not support the motion. Thank you.
Councillor Fair, or sorry, Councillor Penner, you want to speak?
Yeah, just to close. The point Councillor Penner made about disagreement is very true and very wise. We should disagree. We do all represent different people within the community. But if we need to function as a council, once we have debated, once we have made a motion, if we are not cohesive on that, then we cannot move forward. Then we are dysfunctional. It is not dysfunctional to disagree. It is dysfunctional to continue to sabotage a motion made by the entire council once it is done.
Thank you. Councillor Swagstrom, then.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, there's a bit of a difference of opinion in terms of process here, and I just want to make it very clear that this is the first open council meeting that we're talking about a $24.3 million performing arts center. We have never talked about this in an open council meeting before. So this is our first time that we're talking about it. And so I have no problem saying that I'm opposing the motion because I don't support that number. That is dramatically different information than what we had at the previous votes. It's not the same vote.
Councillor Penner.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that point of 15 million. I don't know if technically it was in the motion, but the assumption was that it was a $15 million project. So I don't think we can talk about sabotaging the project, because in my mind it's gone from 15 to 24. I do think that might just be a difference of opinion, but that's where I'm coming from.
So you're on record supporting a $15 million project?
No, I didn't say that, but
Oh,
I'm
okay.
just saying we weren't sabotaging the $15 million project. This is new information, as Councillor Swagster was saying.
Councillor Fair.
Okay, want me to close the debate?
Please.
All right. Okay, I'm not going to disagree that this, sometimes the processes are flawed. Nobody has never made any errors. And I think that if we're going to hang it on a nail where we say, well, we support a $15 million complex, but we're not going to support a $24 million when we in fact have only supported $7.5. It really doesn't matter where money comes from. If we're contributing $7.5 million, it shouldn't matter to us where the rest of it comes from. If it doesn't come from, it dies anything. That's what the whole intent of the motion is. So I think that further to that, I think that when we do make a decision and nothing's changed, we're still recommitting to the $7.5 million that we committed to back in July of last year. But I think that I agree with Councillor Penner. When we make a decision as council, we need to take ownership as council. I don't think we can go and put a different front on there and say, well, I'm kind of sour. I don't like it. And we put it out there, and then right away is that it becomes a controversial thing. And it's very, very difficult to go and raise funds when you're not united.
Thank you, Councillor Fair. All right, Council, I'm going to get back to my main point. And you're right, we're all right. We can all debate the benefits of a project, and we can have disagreements, but eventually we vote. And we vote on many different things. And we have voted numerous times, and we've gone through all kinds of processes for multiplex. And then that has been, then we've meandered from there. We have had votes on moving forward with the Performing Arts Centre, and then that has meandered because now we have to do public consultations, which are important, but that seemingly didn't deter us from moving forward. And so then we had another motion to proceed with $7.5 million. We had private fundraising and so on. And we've had that, and we've been working towards that. Not all of us voted for it around this table, including myself, including Councillor Fair. But the fact is that for us to be functional, we need to move forward on motions and not sabotage after we've had a vote, not even a year later, that we are sabotaging ourselves by trying to advocate for dollars from the federal government and provincial government. We're sabotaging our partners that we're asking for help with when it comes to private fundraising. We're sabotaging our volunteers that have been working so hard at looking at this plan closely, and our administration who's questioning why they put all the work into something only for us to change our mind or meander in a fashion that doesn't show clear and concise vision. And so what I am asking is for us to be a functional council. Respect what's been voted on, move forward, ask questions when it's appropriate. You couldn't wait a day and a half, 2 days before a council meeting to maybe talk to council instead of talking to the media. Surprising. So for me, let's just move forward in a functional way. And so let's support the things that we vote for. That's what I'm asking. Call for the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 11A, we have correspondence in regards to the grant program for 150 Community Infrastructure Program on page 76. It's nice that we actually get responses back about grants, and here we did. Even though we don't like it, we get a response. That's what we should be waiting for. 11B, we have Seine Rat River Conservation District on page 78. We'll take that as information, unless there's any questions. We have 11C. We have Shaw, letter from Shaw on page 88. Any comments or questions? Take it as information. We have 11D, Minister of Sport and Culture in regards to library grant. Oh, another grant we get response to. Good. Take it as information. Other business. Summer in the City. We do have 2 more board appointments that we'd like to make, and that is number 1, after some discussions with different individuals who have interest and so on, we have Ange Gunther, who is business owner on Main Street, as well as Cassandra Mulcherak, and she's been involved with Summer in the City before. I may be saying her last name wrong, but we know who it is. Can I have a motion to accept these, please? Councillor Siemens, Councillor Penner. Any discussion? Call for the question. All those in favor? Carried. Motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Swagstra, Councillor Penner. All those in favor?